Candidly, I'm Kalila McCoy, and this is the show that brings you stories from people bold enough to reimagine life. This is Where We Rise. Hello, everyone. I hope your day is going well so far. I am so pumped for today's conversation that I am going to get right into it. We are currently in our Back to School series where we explore how others learn, both literally and figuratively, and how they see the world so we can learn a little bit more ourselves. Today, we are hearing from Dr. Emily Wassell. Dr. Emily has been an educator for many years and has worn many hats. The joy, the love, and the passion in Dr. Emily's voice as she shares about her job, the students she's worked with, and her family is very contagious. In this conversation, you'll hear how her journey took her from Colorado to India, from traditional classrooms to juvenile centers, from teaching English to founding a school built entirely around well-being. You'll hear how she reimagined what learning could look like and worked to meet her students where they were so they could rise. You'll also hear of a mother's deep love for her son and the importance of honoring who our children are. So let's jump in because this episode is full of heart and a vision for learning that rises far beyond the classroom. Okay, Dr. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I am going to actually start our show a little bit differently today. So you and I both come from the world of education, which we will talk about in a minute. But I recently stepped out of the classroom into a math specialist or math coaching role. And at our coaching meetings, one of our supervisors likes to, as she says, start the meeting with joy. So I'm going to ask us to start with joy today and ask you, what is something that is bringing you joy right now?
I have to say my family. I feel really fortunate. I have a 6-year-old boy and a 13-year-old boy and a sweet husband. Mm-hmm. And we have really been enjoying each other's company lately. And that just brings me so much joy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. My 6-year-old made a fruit salad this morning and it just lights me up that they both love me and are happy to talk to me and share with me. And I feel really fortunate to have a good relationship with both my boys and my husband. Mm-hmm. So that lights me up.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. In preparation for this, I was thinking about my joy, and mine was relationships too. I have a 5-year-old at home. And so you know this, like when you get married and you have kids, like life is just different. And when you're in education, it's ongoing, never stopping. And I feel like it's easy to let those relationships kind of slide. And I feel like I'm finally getting to a point where I might not be with somebody every day, all day, but my time is really like high quality time that I'm spending with people. So that's kind of my joy of feeling that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into the educational world. I know that you have been in the educational world for over 25 years, right?
Yeah.
So obviously that's something else that brings you joy as well. So let's kind of go to where you started with education and everything that's led you to where you are now.
Great. Yeah, I kind of, when you're a kid and you play games, I am the oldest of 4 kids. And I would always play school with my brothers and sisters. And wanted a whiteboard, loved school supplies, all of that. However, I really thought I wanted to be a politician. And I used to tell people, like, I'm going to be the first female president of the United States. And I was very, very excited about politics. And I actually went to a school in India for my last 2 years of high school called the United World College. And while I was there, we had to do community service. And I ended up teaching, because it comes naturally, for an orphanage. And I remember working with orphans and having this feeling of like, politicians don't change the world, teachers do. And it was really this clarity of, if I really want to make an impact in the world, then I can do it through teaching. And it really solidified that all along I've been interested in teaching. And I just wanted to make a bigger impact, which I thought politicians did. And it was really affirming for me to realize, like, no, it's teachers. Teachers make the real difference in the world. And that solidified my choice to stay on the path of teaching. So
neat. That's really exciting that your story is very similar to mine. I wanted to be a lawyer when I was younger, and I went and shadowed a lawyer and realized that world was not for me. But it was really about like I wanted to fight for the little guy. I wanted to help somebody. I wanted somebody who didn't have a voice, to be that voice for them. And then when I found out being a lawyer wasn't for me, I was really distraught. And my dad was just like, you're really good with kids. You're always with children. You're always helping them. And just like you said, like through helping a child, you are making an impact on the future and on the world. So that's really cool that you and I have that connection.
Yeah, I love that.
So tell me, first of all, why India? Like what type of program in your school allowed you to do that?
Yeah. So actually, United World Colleges were started in an effort to stop world wars. And so
Okay.
now there's many of them, but when I went, I think there was only 10 or 12 in the world. And basically 1 or 2 students represent each country at each of the schools. And so I got to represent the United States. And
Neat.
I thought I was going to end up going to the United World College in the US, which is in New Mexico. However, I was offered a spot in India, and my parents were not so thrilled, but I was adamant and wanted it ferociously. And my grandmother was the one that really stood up and said, let her go. You got to let her go. And I'm really thankful that I had the chance to do it.
So you're there, you're realizing that teaching is really where you can make the most impact. What happened after that?
Yeah. So I was excited about teaching, and unfortunately, I did not have a lot of guidance in terms of how to get into college. And so I ended up taking what started as a 1-year gap year, and then it was a 2-year gap year, and then it was a 3-year gap year, and it ended up being 4 years before I actually started college.
Okay.
I ended up getting into my dream school after those 4 years and taking the SAT multiple times, and neither of my parents were college graduates, and so I had no guidance and didn't know what I was doing, and fumbled my way through it till I got into college. And in those 4 years of gap years, I really got to travel. I learned a bunch of languages. I was an au pair. I did a bunch of different jobs, which meant by the time I got to college, I was really thankful to be there and really serious about school. And, starting college at 21 is a totally different experience than what I imagine it is at 18, right? So I was not... people jokingly called me Cinder Emily because like at 10 o'clock at a party, I'd be like, I got to go sleep, you guys. I got class in the morning. Like I was not there to party. I was there to learn. So yeah. And I loved college, and I really had an incredible time there, and actually started doing student teaching, for my work study. I was able to teach, which was fantastic, and started teaching in college, which was great, and did my undergrad in English with a minor in comparative religion. Then I did my master's and got my master's of arts in teaching right afterwards, and started teaching in public schools. And I taught in a lot of different schools. I just couldn't really figure out where I wanted to stay. So I worked in a juvenile correction center. I worked in a low-income school district. I worked in a high-income school district. I just couldn't find my place.
Right.
And at the time, I was thinking like, I just want to stay at one school and be there. But now in hindsight, I'm really glad because I was able to experience so many types of schools.
Right.
So I worked everywhere from public to private to gifted and talented to, troubled youth, and ended up teaching in lots of different places and really getting a much bigger picture of education. And I remember I was at one point, I was the teacher that I taught English first and foremost, but then they realized I was also good at teaching math and reading. So I became the teacher that was helped with behavior problems. So kids who were on behavior plans ended up getting me multiple times a day. And I remember I just wanted to take them on field trips and take them outside and show them the real world. And, I was always pushing the limits of what was allowed in the classroom.
Yes.
And, I was the teacher that was scolded for bringing in fruit to my students that didn't have food at home. Once I had a student who was homeless, and when he got an apartment with his mom, I had a futon bed from college that I gave to them, and I got in trouble because you're not supposed to be meeting up with students after class. And I had a student who was once put up for adoption when she was 14 from her parents. And so she would come to me every morning, and I would give her hugs, and I would talk to her and be there with her. And I was told, like, no, you're not allowed to give students hugs. And I just remember thinking, like, this system needs to change. Like, these students need hugs. These students need fruit. These students need resources. And I had a fellow teacher say, no one's going to listen to you till you have more letters after your name. So that is what inspired me to go get my PhD. And I thought, okay, you want letters after your name? I can get letters after my name. So I did a PhD program, and that's where I found the science of well-being. And it was 2012 when I was in the PhD program, and the science of well-being was not trending in the same way that it is today. Right. So I was really fascinated by it and really intrigued by it, and really hoped to integrate all of this science about how people thrive and how we're happy and how to create happy, successful youth into school systems. And for one reason or another, that was not met with much enthusiasm. And at one point, I was after I got my PhD, I was continuing to teach. I ended up teaching at a few different universities. And I went to Washington, D.C. and went to the Department of Education, and I asked for a meeting, and I was so excited to talk about the science of well-being and how I could integrate it into school and education. And I was basically told, like, education's good. We have these great textbooks. We have these great tests. Like, we don't need any touchy-feely well-being, health and happiness stuff. And that is what actually led me to found and create my own school focused on well-being as an outcome measure. Wow. So that was a whole nother journey and a huge challenge in figuring out how to run a school. And running that school was really life-changing. It was for me and the students. And changing the focus to be one of well-being for students meant that we did about 3 field trips a week, and we did 25 overnight trips a year with those students, showing them the real world and really focusing on their health and happiness, focusing on getting them connected to the environment, talking with them about security and safety, emotional resilience, lots of mindfulness, and real life skills. So we brought in so many guest experts in from cooking to first aid to, first responders who had dealt with overdoses, and talking to the students about harm reduction strategies, and really trying to share with them in an educational setting all the skills that we need to really thrive in the real world, which is so much beyond the textbooks and the tests, right?
I agree.
So, that's was
so amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really a fantastic journey.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to dissect, but let's talk about the school first. How did you, so tell me some about 3 field trips a week. Where are some of the places you guys went?
Oh, it was incredible. So one day a week was PE, and I took them outdoor every single week for a full day outdoor field trip. Wow. And it was incredible for me to see neurodivergent learners, kids who didn't want to learn, just connect with nature and their bodies. And, if you've taught, you understand that there's a time where teenagers kind of are not there academically. A few years ago, they knew the content. All of a sudden, puberty hits, and they are just not academically focused at all.
At all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was a real gift to be able to take them outdoors. And that meant in the winter, we were skiing. In the summer, we were hiking. We did swimming field trips. We did, you name it, everything you could think of, bike trips. but lots and lots of time outdoors with them,
Mm-hmm.
which was, I think, really nourishing for their souls to just connect with
Yes.
nature, put their fingers in the dirt. It counted as class to be, swimming in waterfalls and we made it academic. We would stop and journal and talk and process and
Right.
we would go to hot springs and talk about the water and mineral content and where the water came from and how hot springs work. So it was always integrated into academic concepts, but really.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because I know the teachers listening are like, wait, how are you getting that content in?
Yeah. And it was, we would be studying geology and get to go hike through canyons. So the other amazing thing was I really tapped into lots of community resources. So, for example, we had an incredible geologist take us to sites and hike with us and be pointing out everything from fossils and, the layering of the soils and different, time periods that the different soils had come from and how water flows worked. And it was really an incredible opportunity. So that was PE, and that was once a week. And then we did a lot of community service. So we partnered with lots of local organizations and a lot of elderly. So we would do anything from, sometimes we would just talk with elders in our community. Sometimes we would go and do yard work for them, like when the seasons were changing and they needed leaves raked. So it was a lot of work and a lot of community service, which in the end was something that was really empowering to all of our teens to really feel needed and feel capable.
Yes.
And then we did field trips that were really focused on, we did a block system. So each month basically was one unit that we would focus on in the afternoons. And in the mornings, this is not the field trips, but just the week, we would do a unit. And then in the morning, we would focus on the core subjects. So, English and math and science. And so in our field trips, we would, like, for example, one time we did a civics unit. And in that civics unit, they ended up having to take the citizenship test at the end of the block and understand about our government and how our government worked. And then we visited a bunch of local people who worked for the government. So we would go on field trips to the post office or to the fire department or the police department. We met with the local DA and got to talk about how the court systems worked. So it was really a chance to use our community as a classroom and take the students out into the real world and teach them things about, what do you do when you have to have jury duty, or how do you, what should you know from your local fire department? And that
things
was
that
really,
a lot of adults don't know.
Exactly.
Just because that's not normally part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
And you're making education come alive and making it purposeful and meaningful at the same time.
Exactly.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it was. It was really a gift to be able to have that time with those students. And then we also focused on field trips. So we were in rural Colorado, and we would do field trips towards cities. So we would take them to the city and learn about how to be safe in the city. I would take them to the ballet or the opera, museums. We would go for dance lessons. So the field trips were really focused on exposing them to culture. And we even did lessons in etiquette, and I took them to really fancy restaurants, and we would have to learn how to dress nice and tie a tie and iron your clothes and show up at a nice restaurant and have manners and which fork do you use. And it really felt empowering to give those teens those skills.
So what age group was this?
So it was from 7th grade through 12th. So secondary. Yeah.
Nice. And about how large was your school?
We were really small. So at the largest, we were 28.
Okay.
So
that's wonderful.
Yeah. It was really, really great.
You really get to make a one-on-one connection with those kids, and it makes it easier to go out on the field trips and things like that.
Yeah. And I really, I was able to really love the students in a way that, is almost going back to Plato and Socrates, right? This idea of love in the classroom. And in a way that, I'm married, I have kids, I respected all those boundaries and yet could tell
Mm-hmm.
them that I loved them and tell them that I cared
Yes.
about them. And developing that relationship with students, we had some students who were with us for 6 years, and being able to see them come in and then
And grow
grow
up.
and
Yeah.
flourish was really, really a joy.
From the side of being the founder of the school and opening it, what type of things did you have to do and prepare for?
Oh, everything, right? From grant writing to, um, managing supplies, to explaining to the community what we were doing, to um, really figuring out how to meet each student's needs while still
Mm-hmm.
upholding academic excellence. And
Right.
that was always a challenge of, you know, I wanted them to read, I wanted them to write, I wanted them to be able to complete an SAT and understand grammar rules and understand,
Mm-hmm.
algebra and geometry, while at the same time tending to those softer skills. And so
Yeah.
always trying to strike a balance as far as where do we fit everything in was always a challenge. And
Yeah.
then I think the biggest challenge came with COVID. And that was
Okay.
really a huge challenge for the school, right? Because how do you do field trips when you're not supposed to even
Everything's
see
shut
each other?
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we were really lucky that we still did field trips through COVID.
Okay.
It was just a lot of outdoor learning. So we
Mm-hmm.
would still go on hikes, and we even did ski trips. Like, we would be, in some cases, the only students out there. And um, like I told you, we would do the Front Range trip, which was the one where we did, ballet and theater and all of that. And that year I didn't want to take it from those kids. I was like, how
Mm-hmm.
do I do this? How do I give them a cultural experience while in lockdown? And I
Right.
actually found this tiny hot spring that I was able to reserve the whole place. And so we showed up and
Nice.
had it used to be like a camp. So there was a
Okay.
dining hall and there was a kitchen we could use, and the students had to plan all the meals and cook all the meals, and each student led different activities, and we had a dance, and we were able to really have a great time. And we were
Mm-hmm.
really fortunate that by then tests had come out. So we
Mm-hmm.
tested every student before we left for the field trip. And then we were able to just have a nice time together. And,
Yeah.
so managing COVID was maddening, really, if I'm
Right.
totally honest. So
Which is very understandable.
yeah, yeah. Not to mention the politics and it was challenging.
Right. Tell me a little bit about like your staff for this. Was it kind of hard to find people? Because this is not, when you go into teaching, obviously you want to reach the kids and things like that, but what you learn in college doesn't really set you up for this style of teaching.
Yeah.
So were you looking for a certain type of person when you were hiring? And then do you have a specialized training for those teachers?
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting now that I reflect back. We started with a lot of part-time teachers. A teacher would come in and teach Spanish, or a teacher would come in to teach cooking, or a teacher would come in for PE or little parts. And then I had success with some teachers and not success with some teachers, right? So that was
Right.
another challenge of hiring and letting go, and finding the right people who really understood the whole concept. And I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the bigger, I think the challenge that a lot of teachers face is that in some cases you're representing more than just your subject, right? You
Mm-hmm.
are, in some cases, the moral compass for these students. You are
Yes.
the safe place for these students, and living with them, hiking with them, traveling with them, it made me a better person, right? I really had
Mm-hmm.
to step up. And I saw in my staff, the staff who really rose to the occasion and were willing to really be amazing. And in some cases,
Yeah.
there were staff that, when you're teaching students about their well-being and their health, and they're, doing meditation with them in the mornings, and teaching them about health and nutrition, you can't be smoking cigarettes on the side. If you're teaching this, teaching content about the dangers of tobacco and
Right.
nicotine, you can't actually be smoking on the side. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of a challenge to find teachers who were really willing to also commit to their own well-being. But I was very fortunate that I did. I ended up finding some really amazing people who really rose to the occasion and were able to step into those leadership roles in a powerful way. And the
Good.
other thing that made the school really different was, as I'm sure you know, as a teacher, you're often asked to keep who you are out of the classroom and just show up as a teacher. And one of the
Right.
things that we did was we said there is nothing that is not school appropriate if it's brought by the students. So,
Okay.
of course, I kept boundaries of lots of things are definitely school inappropriate. However, if a student came to me and asked, what is Xanax? Or what is this? Or when did you lose your virginity? Right? All those, I had a policy of being honest with students. And that was really powerful because it meant that they came to me with their real problems. And that was in some ways really eye-opening to see what young people are actually dealing with,
Yes.
I'll never forget there was a moment where a bunch of us girls, we were on a hut trip. We had the girls in the sauna. The girls were saunaing and they started talking about like, who have you kissed and when did you? And then they started asking about dick pics. And I had this moment of shock, right? I'm in this room with 13 to 17-year-old girls.
Yes.
And they asked me, how old were you when you got your first dick pic? And I said, okay, full disclosure here, I've never gotten one. And they were like, what? You've never gotten one? Well, that's just, I guess, how old I am, right?
Yeah.
And I asked the girls, I said, how many of you have received one? And every single girl in that room had received one.
Oh, my goodness. And at 13.
And it just broke my heart. It just completely broke my heart. And I had to say, like, that is not okay. That is not, ever should never be tolerated. That is not something that from a stranger, especially, that is just such a violation. And then when I was speaking with the boys later, we had this whole discussion about like, if you ever feel tempted, I want you to send a picture of a cute puppy. I promise it will work better every time, So, being able to be real with students and really try to understand the real problems they're facing was so much more than algebra, right? It was so much more than comma splices. And I went into creating this school thinking like, student well-being, students need more time outside. They need healthier foods. They need to talk about nutrition. And I had no idea what teens were really dealing with, which was so much more than parents realize, right?
Yeah. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges that you've learned that kids are dealing with?
Technology, right? Social media. The idea that these young girls who are, and I'm speaking particularly for the girls and the boys, but particularly the girls, social media can really crush their confidence. They look at all these beautiful people who have everything and they start to really have that negative inner voice that I think a lot of us have as teenagers. And I always told them, like, you're all ugly ducklings that are going to turn into these beautiful swans. And that's just puberty. It's just how it works,
Right.
But it's really different with social media. And I remember at one point the students invited me to be on Snapchat with them. And when I realized that Snapchat shows your location and I could see who was hanging out with who and who was not included. And I just realized so much technology is really crushing for young people.
Right.
And one of the things that we frequently did was we would take their phones on field trips. And it was incredible to see after 24 hours of not having their phones, they were kids again. And playing in the dirt and not caring.
Yes.
When they knew that nobody had a phone, they weren't worried about someone taking a picture of them and then having dirt on them or them playing in the leaves, right? And so taking away technology let them be kids again. And I think that's what's really heartbreaking for me is to see how technology has kind of pushed maturity and adulthood on some of these young people just far too soon.
They're not ready. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
What was the family support like?
Mixed. Some of the families completely loved it, and some of them were like, shouldn't you be doing tests? Shouldn't they be sitting and doing more, you know, more classical education?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the the interesting thing was seeing the results, right? So now
Okay.
I look at those students and where they're at in the world, and many of them got full ride scholarships. We had students start their own businesses right after high school,
Wow.
and I admire them. I look up to them. They're incredible young people who spent time figuring out who they were rather than
Mm-hmm.
trying to impress other people. And,
Right.
yeah, time will tell the real benefits, but it's been a joy I still am connected with many of them and keep in touch. And that really
Yes.
feels like such a gift. So.
Is the school still running?
No, actually, so that's a whole nother story, but I'm happy to
Mm-hmm.
share. So, I have a really amazing son. He's now 13, but when he was 11 and 12, he started, being bullied mercilessly. And he
Mm-hmm.
is neurodivergent. He's got red hair. He's a very different kid.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant, funny, but not like his peers.
Okay.
And we kind of reached a point where we said, of course, I teach English and math. My husband taught art and PE. So that was a whole nother layer teaching. My husband was also one of the staff members.
Oh,
Um,
neat.
yeah, which was great. But our
Mm-hmm.
son was not into it. And it was like
Yeah.
part of the reason I really created the school was for him. I thought like, this
Mm-hmm.
will be great. This is just what he needs. And he said, Mom, I just want science. I want robotics. I want chemistry. I want chemistry labs. I want physics. And we were not successful in finding great science teachers that really fit the bill. So, my husband and I made a really hard decision of putting our kids' needs first. And I think, years of working with teens really brought to my attention the critical need to tend to teens at a young age. And
Okay.
so at 12, when he started showing signs of depression and really being really unhappy, we knew something had
Mm-hmm.
to change. And
Right.
so I went to the board and said, I'm done. I'm resigning. You're welcome to find a new director, but I put in my letter of resignation, and the board tried hard, but couldn't find anyone else to run the school. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so it was bittersweet. The school ended up
Yeah.
shutting down, and my family and I, we sold everything, sold our house, sold our car, quit our jobs, got rid of like 90% of our possessions. And the other big awareness I had from running this school was that there's a really small window where teens still want to be with you and still want to
Yes.
connect with you as parents.
Mm-hmm.
And they're embarrassed by you by about 15, right? 14,
Mm-hmm.
15. It's like, oh, Mom, rolling the eyes. So
Yes.
when he was 12, soon to be 13, it was like, oh no, like he's not going to
You
want
only
us
have a
around
short
any much
time.
longer.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And, my husband and I had always talked about traveling the world one day being a bucket list goal.
Mm-hmm.
So we did it. We gave up everything. And for 5 months, my youngest, then he was 5. So it was 5, 12, my husband and I,
Mm-hmm.
the four of us traveled the world for 5 months. And we
Wow.
went to 11 different countries looking for the right school for my son. And he found it, and it was in Italy. And that's how we ended up moving to Italy. Was he found his dream school, which was focused on science and technology. And he's now happier than he's ever been. So
That is amazing.
yeah, we
What are
feel
some of the
so
places that you
thankful.
visited?
So we started in the US, and we went all
Okay.
over in the US and looked at lots of places in the
Mm-hmm.
US. And I think one of the biggest challenges we faced, especially having been a teacher for a long time, was that places that had really amazing, incredible schools were out of our price range, right? We couldn't afford a lot of the good schools in the US. And
Mm-hmm.
even that people will argue like, well, there's public schools, but we couldn't afford to live in those neighborhoods.
In the
We
neighborhood,
couldn't
yeah.
afford houses in those communities.
Mm-hmm.
And the places where we could afford to live didn't have the schools that we were looking for and the resources we wanted. So we started traveling and went to Mexico, Costa Rica, then we went to Europe and did the Netherlands, France, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, Germany.
Wow.
Then we went to Turkey and India and Hungary.
Okay.
And yeah, so it was an incredible, life-changing opportunity for us.
Yes.
And we really bonded as a family and had a great time together, and were able to just be together. And I think all those years of, I ended up running the school almost 8 years of running the school. And during that time, I was working 60 hours a week. I was not spending time with my kids. When they did see me, I was stressed. I was, grading papers into all hours of the night, or writing grants, or dealing with board meetings, or I was just not present. And that hurt, that it's like, oh, I'm here to care for students, and yet my own children are not getting enough of me.
Yes.
So those 5 months of traveling were really, really super rewarding to just slow down, play in the sand, be on the beach together, go for a hike together. And the irony of the whole situation was that we ended up, for those 5 months of traveling, with airfare, with everything, cost us $25,000, and our life in America was more than $5,000 a month, right? When you counted the mortgage and the cars and the health insurance, like all of it was more. So we somehow traveled the world for less than we were.
Yeah, that's surprising. You wouldn't think that.
Yeah, it was. And really slowing down and being together really felt like a huge, huge, huge gift. So
yeah, which connects really well. I understand your joy a little bit more that you shared earlier.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
When you were traveling to the different places, looking at schools, how did you know where to stop and what neighborhoods or what schools to look at?
Good question. Yeah. We were very specific with what my oldest son needed, right? He was looking for an open-minded community that would value his neurodiversity. So really looking at schools that have resources for neurodiverse students, narrowed it down. We also realized that the IB program is really good for him. So we were looking specifically at IB schools, and he loves science. He asked for Bunsen burners for Christmas, and it was like, no, we're not having a home Bunsen burner.
Might be a little dangerous.
So, exactly. It's like, you need a chemistry teacher. We're not doing this at home. Let's find a place that has good science resources. So every school we looked at, we would always want to go and look at the science department and the science labs and see what they had. And then, our health. After focusing so much on student well-being, it was really important to us that we would be able to also be healthy as a family. So a place that's walkable, a place that feels safe, a place that doesn't feel, there's some equity. We wanted diversity. We wanted equity. We wanted there to be people of different ethnic backgrounds, people of different language backgrounds, people with different religions, people, to expose our kids to more than what they had seen in rural Colorado.
Right. So what is it like in Italy where you are?
We're really happy. We're really, really happy. We're not far from Venice. So we get to, Venice is 30 minutes away, which is kind of a dream anytime we get off the train and we're in these amazing places. And we don't have a car. We use public transportation and trains and buses, and we walk a lot. And life is a lot slower, right?
That sounds wonderful.
Cafe. Go to a piazza. So we're really, really enjoying the shift. And
are you learning Italian?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
piano, slowly. Yeah. I understand more than I can say, which is kind of the natural way of things.
And how long have you been there now?
Since August 2025.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
And he's enjoying his schooling there?
Yeah, he's happier than ever. He has friends. He's really, really loves life. There's
Mm-hmm.
eccentricity is really appreciated in Europe.
Okay.
So he,
Yeah.
when he dressed up in America in like a fancy outfit, he was bullied and teased. And here he can go out as fancy as he wants, and there's always men that are more dressed up than him. So he really
Mm-hmm.
appreciates that there's um, eccentric people around.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for your family and for your son. And
Thank you.
that's
Yeah.
amazing that that's a sacrifice for your family, but you were able to do that and willing to do that for your child. And I think
Yeah.
that, yeah, that's very admirable.
Well, I get teary because I feel like he knows I love him. He
Mm-hmm.
knows that like the school was my baby, was my dream. I always wanted to create a school. And then when I realized that he was struggling, we let it go for him and
Mm-hmm.
to really put his needs first. And I think,
Yeah.
you asked before about like what is the biggest thing that teens struggle with? And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are concerned with, gun violence or drugs or all these other, alcohol abuse, all these violence. But to
Mm-hmm.
me, one of the biggest dangers out there is bullying. And,
Yeah.
um, before we made this huge move, we were really afraid for him because of how
Mm-hmm.
bad the bullying was. And so
Oh,
for him to now be free of that just feels like, I can breathe, and I feel
yes.
really so thankful that
And you get
he's
to see who he really is. And
exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
sure he's coming out of his
exactly.
shell more.
Yeah,
And
completely.
understanding what you guys did for him is going to, build that relationship stronger
Yeah,
and stronger every day.
yeah. Well, and as a parent, like at the end of the day, there's nothing you wouldn't do for your kid. And I think that's
Mhm.
true of every parent out there. But I
Yes.
think tragically, a lot of parents don't realize when teens actually need them the most,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And a lot of teens aren't willing to share their struggles, right? And
Right.
so, having been there and having worked with so many teens through their struggles and
Mhm.
realizing like, oh, these aren't 17, 18-year-old struggles. These are like 12 and 13-year-olds struggling. And I think
Right.
that's something that at least in my generation was not the case. Like
Mhm.
I was still very much a child at 12. I wasn't a young
Right.
adult. And I think with technology, like I said, there's this maturity that's happening even younger.
Mhm. A lot of kids, like you said, aren't really talking to their parents, and you know how our school system as teachers, we're encouraged not to have those conversations with kids and not to help them unless you're the guidance counselor, and I'm sure they even have
Right.
limits. What would you suggest to either parents or teachers? Like, what are some signs that we might notice or things like that that we should be more aware of? I know you talked about social media. What are some other things?
Yeah. I think just as a society, we may need more time to slow down, right?
Mhm.
And the benefits of boredom, the benefits of
Yeah.
reading. Like I am a huge, huge, huge advocate of reading. And if your teen is not reading, they're struggling, period. And I would always talk to students about how reading gives you the chance to try anything in the world without the actual risk. That
Oh, I like that.
reading is this doorway into all kinds of things. And so
Mhm.
the students that are interested in sex or interested in drugs or interested in joining a gang, like there's a book about that. Let's find a book of
Mhm.
someone who actually did that. And you can read
Right.
all about it from the safety of your own bedroom, right?
Mhm.
And I think that giving students literature rather than technology is a way to really keep them safe and keep
Yes.
expanding their horizons and opening their eyes to the real world
Mhm.
while not opening them up to the dangers that really exist in the real
Right.
world. Um, and I think another critical thing is mindfulness and time to breathe and time to slow down. And I think our busy lives are such that as parents, we're really busy. There's
Yes.
so much going on. And little things like having dinner as a family. No media, no phones at the table, no TV on, no music on. Everybody sit down and have a meal together is really, really, really valuable, because sometimes, I think often, teens need to talk to someone and there just isn't time.
Right.
And they're not going to interrupt you while you're on the phone and making dinner and listening to music and watching TV to share something that's really emotional and hard for them.
Mm-hmm.
They need that space and they need that calm. And
Right.
so creating spaces in our homes of quiet and calm and space is a real challenge for adults, right? I completely recognize that. Like we
Mm-hmm.
lead very busy lives. We have emails to get to and work to do and dinner to make. And so making time that is tech free and making time that is calm and still is critically important.
Yeah.
And the third thing that I would say that is teens need mentors, right?
Okay.
And I recognize with my own son, there are things that he may not want to tell me, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
find that what I do now, I'm now a college coach and I work with teens from all over the world, helping them to, take this whole college process and college journey. And teens often just need someone else to talk to other than their parents. And it's
Yeah.
not that they're keeping secrets from their parents. Like, it'll eventually come back to their parents, but they just need a sounding board to say it for the first time. And so having those intergenerational, like, it can be a grandma, it can be a neighbor. There needs to be another trusted adult in your child's life other than parents. And like you said, I think in many cases it is teachers, but
Mm-hmm.
teachers are put in this really bizarre situation where they may be the most trusted adult in that teen's life. And yet they're never alone with the teen, right? They're not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to talk about things. And so the teen may really, really want to tell a teacher something, but they don't have the time or space to. So
Right.
creating mentorships for your teen where, I think right now globally we have a loneliness epidemic of,
Yeah.
we're all so connected on social media, but we're not authentically connected to real people. And so
Right.
we have these teenagers struggling, upset and alone. We have these elderly people alone, sad and
Mm-hmm.
depressed, and creating those mentorship partners. And it's yes, of course, it is important that we can find adults that we can trust, adults that are trustworthy, but there's a lot of lonely, trustworthy adults out there who would love
Yes.
to connect with young people and have someone to talk
Mm-hmm.
to or play games with or just be able to listen, which is, I think, what
Right.
teens really need.
Yeah. Wow. That was really great advice and everything that you've shared. I'm very much in awe of you and I'm gonna go talk to my husband. We might need to go travel the world and move to Italy too. Like, it
Well,
just sounds
yeah,
amazing.
thank you. Thank you. It
Yeah.
really, yeah, it was, life is short, and
Yeah.
being with your kids and connecting with your kids it's a
Mm-hmm.
miracle. And it's
Yeah.
such a joy to be able to really be there with them and be present with them.
Right.
And, um, the irony of, like, I'm working really hard so that I can support you so that we can, it's like, no, they just want to play with you. Like, they don't
Yes.
care, my 6-year-old does not care if he has clothes that have holes and are dirty. He doesn't care. He just wants to play with me. He wants a hug.
Right.
He
He
wants to play
wants
on
to
the
be with
beach.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the other stuff doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
especially traveling, it was like he went from a room full of toys to like a tiny little backpack with a few Legos. He was
And he
totally
was
happy.
fine, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When we were
Yeah.
in Mexico, this man, but that was the other thing. Traveling, we met so many wonderful people. And people
Mm-hmm.
told us, like, aren't you scared? No, families are respected around the world. Like, families are loved and appreciated. And we felt so safe everywhere we
Good.
went. And this man, Guillermo, and when we were in Mexico, gave us the seed pod that had fallen from the tree. And
Okay.
it works like a little canoe. It would float in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it was actually, even like the Incans used to play. It was a toy that even the Incans would play with. Like, it's this ancient kids toy of this seed pod that looks like a boat. And
Mm-hmm.
my boys took those seed pods all over the world. It's like they were so excited about that little boat, like over all the other plastic, electronic, like any other toy didn't matter. But
Mm-hmm.
we took that little seed pod
With
with us. We
you.
still have it here in Italy. So
Neat.
it came the whole way. Yeah.
One of the reasons why I wanted to make this podcast was just I feel like the world is so divisive now, and there's not a lot of unity seen. And I really want people to see like we are all just, trying to do our best. We're all living and we need to respect each other and be kind. With all the traveling that you've done, what is something that you've seen that kind of just everywhere you go, it's like, yep, that's humans. That's how we are. That's who we are.
Yeah. I would go back to play and space for play. And it was, whether we were on the beaches in Mexico or the beaches in India, wherever we went, we would see people playing and kids playing and making time to play and to be outdoors and connect with each other and the land was something that we all share. And, my family loves food. We are definite foodies. And it was such a joy to try all the different foods in all the places we went. And, there were definitely differences, right? And I think for my boys in particular, seeing people of different religions was really eye-opening. They didn't understand that, when they saw people in burqas or they saw, sadhus in India, they're like, what are they doing? Why do they sing like that? What are they, and so having discussions about how all of us live here and this idea that there is something bigger than us, right? And we all just call it different things, and how we each celebrate that and how we each identify that. And my oldest, who's very scientific, was like, well, I think it's probably dark matter. I think it's the universe. I was like, great, you can call it whatever you want. Like, as long as you're ready to humble yourself and recognize that there's other things bigger than us. And that, I think we really were so fortunate to just connect with so many people and smile with so many people and learn words in different languages and, try food from different places and art. There was amazing art everywhere we went, from, street art to galleries in Florence, right? That there's something about the human spirit that connects to this joy for being alive. And that was really a gift to share that with my kids and to really slow down and appreciate it.
Yeah. For people who aren't ready for that move or who can't, get out and do as much with their teens, we talked about slowing down and playing with them and listening and talking with them. What are some other things that you would suggest? Like, it sounds like you do a lot of cultural experience, and even in your school, like just getting outdoors, or those are the things that you would say kind of really matter to a child's development?
Yes, completely. Like I've worked, like I said, for years. When I worked in the juvenile detention center, those kids did not get the outdoors, right? They had like lockdown cells. When I worked in public schools with quote unquote troubled kids who would be sent to me, on all kinds of medications, unhappy, outbursts, all of that. And what I've seen is that when you take teens outdoors and you give them, like, here's a mountain to climb, here's a river to swim in, here's a park to play in, something shifts and something changes. And so taking teens, especially, into natural places, at first they're like, what are we doing here? I don't have Wi-Fi. Where am I supposed to charge my phone? Like, they give you pushback. But allowing them to just be in nature and spend time slowing down, looking at the flowers, looking at the animals, like whatever it is, something really magical happens. And I think that all of us need to connect to the land, right? In well-being science, we talk about green spaces and blue spaces increasing our happiness. And that's either like looking at bodies of water or having parks nearby or having forests nearby. And when I think about equity, I think that's one of the real injustices, is that there are people who don't have natural spaces available to them. And so in those cases, even like planting some seeds and having some little flowers growing on a balcony, right? Like finding ways to bring nature back to teens can really help them to slow down and connect with the part of them that's really human in there.
Yeah. Great. Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Emily, for your time today. You've given us a lot to reflect on and think about. And before you go, if there was just one thing that you would really want us to remember from our conversation, what is something that you would encourage somebody to remember as they continue to rise?
Yeah, I think human contact. I think we all need hugs. Every kid needs another hug. Hug your kids hard every day. If you're a teacher in a classroom and you're listening to this and you say, well, I can't hug my kids, give them fist bumps, give them high fives. Like that human contact, that being seen, that being felt is so critical. And, now that I work with teens online and I'm only seeing them on the screen, I still make a point of really trying to connect with them and let them know that I see them and I hear them. And, yes, I'm helping with SAT prep and getting into college, but more than that, I see them for who they really are and make time to connect. So yeah, just take time to really connect with our youth because they need it.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for everything you shared. And thank you for your passion for kids and everything that you're doing and have done to help them grow and the advice that you're sharing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your podcast. I really appreciate it.
As a teacher, listening to this conversation made my heart so happy. I love talking to other educators who have a passion to truly change students' lives. I love teaching students math and reading, but even in elementary school, it's the connections that I love the most and helping children make sense of the world around them. I love it when a kid tells me that they don't need to learn geometry because they'll never use it in life. Let's talk about that. I love how a simple picture book can make them think about a situation that happened a week ago and they want to dive into it. Making space for logic, questioning, creativity, connection, and humanity is so important. I love that Dr. Emily had a school that allowed for that and much more at such a critical age. Dr. Emily's story is a reminder that education is not just curriculum. It is connection. It is curiosity. It's seeing the whole human in front of you and giving them the tools to thrive in the world, not just to pass a test. Remember, learning is not just academic. It's emotional. It's relational. It's rooted in safety and the courage to see others as whole human beings. Hearing what Dr. Emily and her husband did to find that perfect place for their son was so inspiring. It reminded me that parenting is really a series of choices, some big, some small, all rooted in wanting our kids to feel safe, seen, and supported. I did talk to DJ about selling our house and moving to Italy. We are going to stay put for now, but just like Dr. Emily and so many of you parents out there, we are constantly in conversation about what we can do to give Miles a life full of opportunities and a life that helps him blossom into the man he's meant to be. He's only 5, y'all, but I cannot imagine those teenage years. What will the world even look like then? How will he grow? Who will he become? To those of you who are currently raising teenagers, bless you, truly. I hope this conversation gives you ideas or just a moment of validation that you are doing what is right for your child. And hey, shout out to all those people out there who are mentors for our young people. As Dr. Emily shared, it's not just the teachers, it's the coaches, the elderly, the super cool aunts and uncles, the neighbors, and anyone who chooses to be a safe place for a child. Being that kind of presence is one of the most rewarding acts of love. Well, I hope you enjoyed our time today as much as I did. Conversations like this fill me up, and I'm grateful you chose to spend part of your day here with me. I look forward to our next episode together where we will continue our Back to School series. As you move through the rest of your day, I hope you take a moment to listen a little louder to yourself, to the people you love, and to the things that connect us in ways we sometimes forget to notice. I'll meet you back here next time. See ya, bye.